sending it to the projector so I could have it computer.
Okay. So which way do I look?
The camera is here and the microphone.
This
are
way?
the way they normally are. So
Okay.
here,
Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddha smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. You know, so many times we're trying to do something really grand, really spectacular, really outstanding for the sake of living beings. And we wonder why we don't have success in it. And one of the reasons is because we try to take the big leaps before we take the many steps. I mean, we don't want to deal with the little things, you know, oh, I know that, oh, I know that, oh, I know that, you know. And we just want to get to the important things, the deep things. But because they have to be approached incrementally, in step by step, so the one who really truly knows, we often do not achieve our goals. And then we get discouraged or think, well, that's not possible, or there's no way for it to be possible. But it's because we despise small beginnings. It's because we despise baby steps. It's because we I would even say think more highly of ourselves than we ought to think. Now, I'm not saying think lowly of yourself, but what I am saying is that because of the conceit I, you know, and there has to be a conceit I or we wouldn't even be here, you know, and because there is that conceit I, we sometimes have a huge blind spot in front of us. And a lot of what the Dharma does is tries to break down, you know, that blind spot so that one can truly see. And it's something about seeing that actually cures the blindness. You know, and we think that it's so much that we have to do to attain, but it's not so much that we have to do. It's really so much that we have to stop doing. And if we just stop doing some of those things, then everything else is right there in front of us, and it unfolds unnaturally for us because it is part of our original nature and not our habituated nature. And so it's hard to describe making progress and growth because we have an idea of the kind of efforting that's involved to make progress, to grow, to make growth, to have growth, to be successful, to overcome. And it's our looking at it from the worldly view side, we think that there is so much that we have to do. And so it's difficult sometimes for us to really take in and fully understand the awakened view. I was reading something today, this morning, and I always kind of disagreed with, I don't know, the term that Buddha Master would use. He'd say, I am, my lineage is Buddhism. I'm like, I ain't no lineage. My lineage is Buddhism. But when you think of Buddha or awaken, it's the Dharma of awakening. It's entering into an awakened state. That's not really something that you study. That's really something that you do. There is certain thought, speech, action generated when there is that mind present. And so what we really have to do is look at the mind that's present and ask ourselves, is this my idea of what an awakened mind is? And if it's not, what would be? And it's, yeah. If it's not, then what would be my idea? And if I have an idea, maybe I should check in with some others that I think are wise and see what their idea is, and I might have to keep chewing on mine a little bit, or just in recognizing in the very minute ways that the mind is shifting, that the mind is changing. And then we can make some progress. So for today's assignment, we were working with, we kind of joined up, like I kind of dovetail back and forth with those who are in the Dharmacharya program, those who are in the Learning from Buddha program, those who are in no program, those who, just show up, and just to kind of keep the family kind of, dovetailing around each other. So that we sort of stay somewhere in the vicinity of single-mindedness, because we can grow so much in that way, and yet we can only take that which we want to take, or only have to concern ourselves with that which we can hold, and not so much what's a stretch for us, and that way everybody can do their very best and feel good about what they do. So we were looking at the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. That's our lesson in one of the Dharmacharya classes. And the assignment for this week, instead of us really, because you can spend a lot of time on this. Actually, you can spend a lifetime on it, but on putting it into practice, but just considering it, chewing on the stanzas, you can spend a lot of time. And what I asked you to do was to kind of look through them and see what immediately jumps out. Now, the way we do this in the Dharmacharya class is we start with, and there's been a lot of preliminary building up to being able to even entertain some of these views, right? And the first day, they just contemplate the first one. And in the process of contemplating, they're also involving their body. So they're bowing as they do it, submitting, bringing the body low to the teaching, submitting to the teaching, to see what there is that they can get out of it, if not all of it, what they can benefit from. The second day, they do the first two. The third day, they do 3. The fourth day, they do the first 4, and they keep going. And the reason I did it that way is so to help get people into it, without so much resistance. So it was a very short day, that first day, right? By the time you get to day number 15 and you're doing 15 of these, bowing the whole time, just honoring the teaching, submitting to the wisdom of it, laying yourself low to the aversion you have to it, it starts to get intense. And then by the time we get up near the end of the month, at 20, 25, 30 days, and I think it goes 30, 37 days, or maybe I told them to combine a couple, I'm not sure. By that time, either you're totally put off or you're totally on board. So that's something you can do with these over time. Don't just put them away because we'll be through with this, in a couple of weeks and done. One more sutra under my belt or something like that. But we keep these and we keep reviewing. We go back and see how we've done, in light of our own great wish, how we're doing, because, I need to keep working on that. I completely forgot about that. Sometimes you read it a month later, and it's like you're reading it for the very first time. Like, I don't remember that. And that's why we have a practice of 7 times. First time, just reading. Second time, reading. And trying to see what you missed. Third time, reading and taking notes. Because the thing is, if you start taking notes right off the bat, you miss so much because you get fixated on some little part or some little aspect. And if it's read to you, or if you read it to yourself, record it, and play it back, it has even more benefit because you get to listen, just listening, developing this practice of listening, because the time will come that your hearing becomes so acute that you will hear not just sounds, not just melodies, but you'll hear instructions on the wind. But your hearing has to be that developed. So I gave you the abridged assignment. Just pick out a couple of things that jump out at you. And we're gonna give that space of time now for you to jump off into that. And this can be something that you are meeting your aspiration. This could be something that you need to work on. But just being able to realize it or recognize something means that one has already made progress. Isn't that right? And so I'll start with mine, and then I'm pretty much through. The next person can just jump right in. So I don't have as much of a problem with ignorance. I mean, ignorance, you can't argue with stupid. So if there's ignorance there, it doesn't bother me that bad. I just recognize that the capacity is not there to hold it in any other way, So then I can take up the responsibility of holding it, because I certainly believe that the strong should be able to bear the infirmities of the weak, or they're not strong, So that's how I think about things, or try to walk things out in my life. But where I run into difficulty is with the one who's feigning ignorance, but really just trying to be clever. And who's very calculated, so that they're trying to make everybody think they, don't understand, or make someone think that they think they're trying to be helpful when they're really trying to be disruptive, or they're praising you when they're really insulting you, that kind of thing. So I have a dear sister in the holy life, and she's like that. And we both try very hard to get along because we should try to get along. One way that I get along with her is I limit my time with her. Another way I try to get along with her is to sort of give her a warning, don't go there. You're about to step into some dog poop. So stop, back up. I always say you may not have to go away mad, but you might have to go away. So it doesn't mean you just take anything, all kinds of abuse from people or denigration. It doesn't mean that. You only take it to the extent of your practice. Beyond that, it's not practice for you. And so we have to recognize when people, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's the other, when they reach the limit of their practice. Yeah. And this is where compassion and care come in. And also when you recognize you need to work a little harder over there. So she did one of those things that she does, very seemingly innocent. And I typed the email response. And that voice I was talking about, don't press send. Don't press send. I'm like, oh, but I want to. And it was like, don't press send. I'm like, okay, I stopped. I went and got a glass of water, came back, read it again. I said, that doesn't sound that bad. That doesn't sound that hard. And I got ready to press and said, don't press send. And then I decided what I would do. And you know what I did? I pressed send. And to be honest with you, to be honestly honest, I still don't regret having pressed send, because some people running towards the precipice, you have to grab them before they completely run off the end. And I felt that she was one like that, because if you give her an inch, she takes a mile. If you tolerate a little disrespect from her, she becomes abusive. And so you have to kind of know the other animal, but you have to also know your animal. And this is where all of our practice lies, you see, all day, every day. Now, some people may not have a problem with that at all. They don't have to spend too much time with that, and certainly no need to pat oneself on one's back with that. Go to the places that scare you. And that's the fastest way we make progress. I've made some progress, haven't made enough that allows me to step into my true aspiration. But I know, where the danger is for me. And we tend to it. And the more earnest we get, the more we have to have a reason to do things. What's your reason? And sometimes we're a little fuzzy what our reason is. I was thinking today about it now that I've already done the thing. What would be my reason? And my reason is simply that I want to get off the wheel of reincarnation. I'm going to step out of this world of impermanence and cause anything. The Buddha said, this is not the only world. There's a world that doesn't have that, where cause and effect is not the law. But that's not this one. But one can't just go there. One has to have the mind that qualifies to be there. So I'm gonna open up the floor. I am pensive this morning. my Waterloo was 35. When reactive emotions acquire momentum, it's hard to make remedies work. A person in a tent crushing reactive emotions, such as craving as soon as they arise. The sons of the Buddha all practiced this way. And you can just unmute. Or you can just speak. I mean, we have, this mic picks up everybody in here. Yeah,
Sure.
okay. Anybody do the assignment? Is this me? I'm not seeing something in the chat.
There's nothing in the chat, but then-
Okay, I can start. I had a little situation come up with a friend who texts me a lot. And when she texts, she asks a ton of questions. And I repeatedly have gotten myself in situations where I'm just answering her questions and there's nothing coming from it, and I get resentful. So I just kept it on topic and answered the question that we were texting about and didn't answer any other questions. And it felt kind of weird because they were so obvious and I completely ignored them and just stayed on topic and didn't say anything else. And it was a different experience, but my mind was clear and I didn't have to go into any resentments. That's my little example for today.
This is Soma, and I read them through, and then I did land on 4 of them, but one kept coming back at me, and that was number 2. No, wait, is that right? Yes, number 2, attraction to those close to you catches you in its currents. Aversion to those who oppose you burns inside. Indifference that ignores what needs to be done is a black hole. Leave your homeland. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. And what I kept coming around to is the black hole and leave your homeland. And that has supported me this last week.
Could you say more?
I say more. I realized throughout the week how it is easy to get caught in the current of those I'm close to, near and far. That's the easy way. And the harder way is those that oppose me, my thinking, my thoughts, my belief systems, and not paying more attention to that and not just dismissing it, but looking at that opposition and where that reflects inside me and what I do with that reflection was the work for me. And realizing that I can easily dismiss, whether it's the news or someone on the streets or someone I know, dismiss that opposing thought or just engagement, and leaving that old homeland for a new homeland in order for me to kind of clear that space and not be overwhelmed or heavy with that burden or what felt like burden.
Yeah, and this has been a very good year for me, or year, maybe. Yeah, I would say a very good year for me because I'm one who I draw outside the lines. I think nothing is impossible. I'm very expansive in my natural way of thinking, right? But this year, I have fostered a closer relationship with Soma and Busita, and they are so opposite of me. It's or in my view, they were so opposite. And I find that not opposite at all, but maybe just looking at two sides of one coin. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. Number one, it helped me to see that there's another side of me, right? That can be conservative, not in a good way. I mean the word conservative in a good way, because I always think that only the most drastic actions matter. That's the kind of person I am. And I've learned that there is a part of me that is also conservative or can appreciate conservatism, And it's wonderful because I have grown and expanded, going right there and being with what I felt was my opposition to every idea, yes, but, or yes, and we just use and instead of but, so that some of things it's not an objection. But it's in these little ways that we find the totality of our views, and we can come to a middle place, and then harmony can prevail even with people who have different propensities and different personalities. And now we laugh all the time. Well, I'm not saying anything to them about this because I know they don't be like, no, and so it's been wonderful. So I appreciate that one as well. So.
I've had the opportunity to be with the stanzas for a while, given our last month's assignment. And one of the stanzas that jumped out at me was, whatever appears to be truly existent is merely what mind and delusion creates. This mind of ours also is from, this is stanza 22, sorry. This mind of ours also is from the beginning, devoid of an essence inherently real. Then realizing truth is beyond the conceptions we have of the known and the knower as well. Dispel the belief in inherent existence. The sons of the Buddhas all practice this way. So it's being in the place of discerning between delusion and nature of reality. And like all of us, I would say together here today, there's been so much going on, so many changes that have been happening, shifts in how we're practicing. Being in the Dharmacharya has been a big shift in practicing. And beginning to feel like pretty much everything's delusion. And hopefully just a little glimpse of what the nature of reality is a great wish of mine. a great wish of mine.
I like the way 22 is expressed in the simpler edition that we were using. It says whatever arises in experience is your own mind. That's how you see it. That's what your mind is defining the moment for you. So mind itself is free of any conceptual limitations. So know that, and don't generate subject-object fixations. You can make anything appear any kind of way that you want. And it says, so when a thought rises up in my mind, for instance, the mind that will rise up in me and say that she's trying to be clever in her speech, she's really being insulting, you know. Now that rose up in my mind. She said whatever she said, right? But my mind colored it in that particular way. So actually, when we have a reaction, what are we having a reaction to?
Ourselves.
Yeah, what's in our own mind? What you know, we're having a reaction to what we're conceptualizing in our own mind. So actually, nobody has an issue with anybody else if we get right down to it. Of course, in a perfect world, and there are some perfect worlds, the world's a lot more perfect than this, you know, maybe that's not a problem. But in an imperfect world like this, everybody is not going to do this. You're going to be grouped together with a lot more that won't than that will. That should encourage us even more to do what we need to do to not appear, for there not to be appearance in this world again, you know, because you're just going to get more of the same. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Elsie, I also looked at that one and was watching my mind this last week and just thinking how often and regular it becomes this mind-made experience. It just all throughout the day. It was an amazing week for that as well.
You'd think if we just kept looking at this all day throughout the day, every time something came up, that we would, you know, quickly have some kind of a breakthrough here. You know? But at the end of the class, we fold our book up till next week. You know, and that's the difference in studying the versus actually holding it and carrying it and with us moment by moment, examining. I mean, you certainly know where you're weak, and then what will you do about it? How will you strengthen yourself? You know, when we only can strengthen ourselves by using the muscle, exercising the muscle, right? Yes, Suka. Okay, Suka, now you put
She
it.
said there's no sound, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, so you have to unmute. You were unmuted and then you muted. So now you're muted. Take your cursor down to the bottom of the screen and a little bar will show up. You can unmute it, too. Okay, she'll come back home. We should go to someone else while we're waiting for her.
I'll go while we're waiting for Suka. Is that okay?
Yeah, Dr. King.
Number 2 really caught me too, especially the part, aversion to those who oppose you burns inside. And I noticed on my drive over to Brevard that there is a house that looks pretty run down, and abandoned vehicles there. Sometimes there's animals there. It's all overgrown with ivy. And there's an American flag that hangs out every day. And I started to get into a whole narrative about who that person was and what their political beliefs are and what they represent in the world and what kind of a threat they are. I mean, it was bizarre. And I just went a certain distance down that path and recognized what I was doing and how it felt. And it really felt bad. I mean, I was in a foul place, and burning inside is a good description of it. But I was also aware that it was almost like my commentary was as if I were being interviewed on a podcast or something. And I was being very articulate in the presence of the interviewer and feeling full of myself that I was in such a self-righteously superior position compared to this person on the hill over there. And it was like, not only is this whole story being generated in my mind, but also an image of self is being reinforced and consolidated. And it's an image that feels crappy. And so when I recognized what I was doing, I just backed away from it and observed where I was feeling it in my body and so on and so forth, and started to feel some relief. But I realized also that when I use the term my mind, even that is kind of an ego trip. If it were my mind, I would have much better control over it. So it was kind of a sobering drive to Brevard, but I'm glad grateful that I was able to catch a hold of it.
Mhm. And there comes a point, people would ask the Buddha, like when he got rid of the mind, then what do you say? Like he said, I gotta go around talking in third person and so forth, he said, but when I use mine, I use my as a way of communicating, but really understanding, the truth behind it. So I've had people come to me and they've said how they're now enlightened and there is no self, and they start speaking in the third person. Then I know that they're not, but it's true. I mean, if, what is looking at that mind? So when one starts talking about, my mind, who is it that's seeing that? So that's just one level below. That's not the ultimate level, but that's one level that helps us to know that we are not the conceptions that flow out of consciousness. We are not that. So when we're this mind that we're struggling so hard to hold on to because that's me, then who is it who is seeing that mind? Like when you speak of the like an interview, it is very much like that all the time. It's not like just a voice in the head. There is something else behind that's interacting, with that. But if we stay cognizant of it, and we'll catch ourselves sooner and sooner, we'll see how we're like really on a wrong path to understanding, to even try to engage with that. And the only thing that encourages us to continue on that path is if we experience a little bit of freedom when we come to that recognition. You know? And in the beginning, we may not experience any freedom. We just fall into people that we think are wise, you know, or they're talking about something nice and lofty that is possible to enter into once you've penetrated, you know, into a certain reality enough. And so like, I'll just go with it. Doesn't feel so good right now. But then after a while, you start getting your own pockets of relief and release. And then you start to know for yourself, surely, yes, this is the way. And that's the only thing that will encourage us to develop a heart of renunciation. You know, you can't like just renounce, you know, but what makes you give up something is after you've tasted a little bit of it. And there is the encouragement to go a little further, to wade in a little deeper. And it's important to pay attention, or we miss it. We miss these little pockets of opening, you know, if we're not really paying attention, if we're not really looking for them. So we have to train ourselves to look for the pockets of opening. Some teachers call it the gap between the breaths.
You know, to your point, just briefly about the opposition is really not out there. It's really in here. I've never met this person. I've never had any interaction with him. I have no idea who or what I don't even know if it's a he. This is entirely a scenario generated in my mind, including the idea of one who opposes.
Don't we make ourselves so unhappy? I think when you go around and you see people who are like very content, or they call them like masters or whatever, and you know, like they're like always so joyful, but I think they're always like seeing their stupidity, you know? And I was like, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. Yeah. It certainly brings a certain joy to the path. You know, it brings a joy to the effort. Allows you to lighten up a bit if you want to. I mean, like if you want to. If you don't, you know, just go right ahead and be dull and hard on yourself and weary and cantankerous, but just saying you don't have to. It truly is a way of relief and release, and we can enjoy that. He said this is the kind of pleasure that is not born of this world.
I wanted to bring up number 11, which I wasn't able to bring out. I wasn't able to get these 37 practices on the website that you recommended, but I found another website, and number 11 on this other one is the practice of all the bodhisattvas is to make a genuine exchange of one's own happiness and well-being for all the sufferings of others. Since all misery comes from seeking happiness for oneself alone, whilst perfect Buddhahood is born from the wish for others' good. And so this was one of the 4 I chose. And I asked myself, how can I take on another person's suffering and give them my happiness and well-being and still remain unattached. And the more I thought about it, the harder the answer was. And it was about the third day that I thought, well, all I can do is visualize energy exchange. Seeing their energy as dark and taking that energy into myself. And this wasn't any one person, it was in general. And doing that with a breathing in and then breathing out and seeing my energy as being a beautiful color, a light blue, a higher energy, and sending them that energy. But that seems kind of what we all do if we do healing work and so on, and it just seemed kind of minimal. And so, because I'm not a bodhisattva, I'm just a human, how do we as humans practice? I'm asking you, how do we practice making that exchange as humans where we are?
Mhm. So I'd like to read it from this other edition. I think it can shed a little bit more light. It says, all suffering comes from wanting your own happiness. Complete awakening arises from the intention to help others. So exchange completely your happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. So I was thinking, this one came up for me this week, or last week, because I didn't feel well. And I was thinking like, oh, poor me, you know, like my body is hurting. and then the thought came to me that I'm so fixated on myself. And suppose I was holding this pain that I'm suffering joyfully in exchange with other people who are sick and in pain, you know. And so as I started thinking in that way, it became my pleasure to suffer sickness, the pain of sickness for everybody that was sick. And the pain went away. I mean, it just stopped. It subsided when I took it from the poor me wanting my happiness to being willing to carry all of the pain for everybody who's feeling bad today, you know. Then instead of it feeling like I was suffering, I felt accomplishment. I felt there was a sense of purpose and lifting and lightening the load for so many. And it's a shift. You see, all of this, everything is mind-made, mind-conceived, the Buddha said. And depending on how we think and ponder, you know, that becomes the inclination of the mind. So it's really, these instructions are so useful to us because they're simply showing us how to shift or move the mind. And then what we take as suffering will vanish. The sting of it, the suffering of some thought that we're holding will vanish when we change what thought we choose to hold. That's what I mean. So I know that it's funny that you should ask this question. You don't know it yet, but your life has been highlighted in our newsletter for this month, you know, and all of the things that you do. And isn't it amazing that the one who's the most compassionate is also looking to say, how could I hold more compassion? The one who's not compassionate thinks they're compassionate. And that's how our mind trips us up. That's something that's one way that you can do it. So honestly, I think you do exchange your happiness for the suffering of others and all the things that you do. So the action is the thing, you see. I don't think you should go that much further with it, not for you. A lot of us could like take an example from the only thing is that when we get into a place that we do without doing, that we, like you are, like she works a volunteer with the Red Cross, so she goes to disasters all the time. And she'll say, oh, I can't be here right now. Sorry, I didn't want you to think I was ducking out on my classes, but they're sending me down there to, what was it, Paradise or wherever the building that collapsed. Or I'm off to a flood, you know, I've counseled some flood victims, always going, just without any thought that I am doing. And so sometimes a bodhisattva does not even recognize, you know, their actions because they're not all tied up in it. Yeah. So you just keep doing what you do, how you do. And I think that one's for somebody else, okay?
Thank you.
If you could look at number 13, that's an example. These dovetail into each other. I was like, everyone is a practice I need to undertake, every single one. So it says, even if you've done nothing at all and someone still tries to take your head off, you know, spurred by compassion, take all of his or her evil into you. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. You know, so a lot of it is just arousing compassion for people instead of what our natural reaction is when there's something adverse going on. That is really the greatest way. If one gets that one down, then everything else falls like a domino. You know, it's a domino. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, to have compassion when somebody is, you know, disrespecting you, being slanderous, passing rumors, to have an open and caring heart towards them, or to even praise their good qualities. You know, this is a way of giving someone your happiness. It's a mindset shift. That's what I'm saying.
Share a little.
Yes.
So can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I want to share number 13 because I have been having a lot of trouble lately. And Venerable had already read the verse out loud. And I would like to read once more. Even if you have done nothing wrong at all, and someone still tries to take your head off, spurred by compassion, take all his evil or her evil into you. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. And so inside me feels like a volcano. And like I feel at the moment I felt calm, and I was like, okay, you know, I can really work with this. And then, and I had all these thoughts in my head. I'm like, what can I say to this person? And what, like, but I remember what Venerable shared, and remember that, I had to be gentle, and so all these thoughts are going on in my head, and I couldn't figure out what to do. And so my emotion and my thoughts in my head felt like I was in a dream. So I sat down in my room and really thought through this, and I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the person really thinks of you. It's just what you is true to yourself and for yourself. And so as I was thinking this, I was like, okay, the following morning, we actually ran into each other, and I greeted her, and I said, yesterday I know that it was my unskillfulness of what I shared, and I know that that wasn't what I meant to share with you. But I want you to know that I really truly love you, and I really just want to share my thoughts, but I know that that came out of anger. And so at the moment, I knew that I was sharing out of fear and anger at the moment when I had shared the first time with her. And I figured that, before I do speak, when I used to, because I knew that I was taking down my practice, and I figured that, from now on, that my practice should be that I should really think it through before speaking, because I know that the unskillfulness of my actions can be harmful to others, and that I should think before I do anything with anybody, in not just in the Sangha, but really outside in the outside world of the Sangha. And last week when Venerable shared, oh no, it was not last week, it was Sunday when Venerable shared about the Christians and how they were giving, or when Venerable was when she had received the Buddhist book, and so recently in the last few weeks, actually, I've been receiving a lot of Christian things, and I was thinking that, I wanted to show Venerable right away, but there was already a line, and so I received 3 things, and I left it in the fan. I'm sure you've seen those. I was like, what does this really mean? Maybe I should read these books and try to figure out what these people are trying to tell me. And then I'm calling my sister and said, sister, this is crazy. I don't know what's going on right now. But in the last few weeks, I've been getting books, And so I've been trying to do my research, and I really thought through it, and it's like, well, it doesn't really matter like what Jesus, or what they're really trying to, like what Jesus is telling me and what Buddha is telling me. I feel like everything is just one, and it's just not what the Buddha said, what the Christian said. At the end of the day, it's just what's, as long as you live a kind life and you're not being evil with your thoughts, then it's all that matters. It's not what really, as long as you're gentle with yourself and everything. It's what I'm really trying to say. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share, and I just laughed when Venerable shared. I was thinking all the stories in my head. But thank you so much for listening.
Did people give them to you on the lot?
Yes, I got one in the lot. I got one in the store, in our store, Venerable, and then the third one was one in the store, one in the lot. No, 2 in the store and 1 in the lot. And
Yeah, so we get a lot of Christian tracts, at the store, and I appreciate them. One day we'll have a conversation. They usually give me one like after I leave. I'm in the car getting ready to drive off. They just wait on the parking lot, and when they see me getting ready to put the car in the gear, then they run to the window and hand me a tract and run back to their car. So I think it's precious, and I thank them. I thank them for it too. One day we'll have a conversation about it. But you know, I know how to talk. A rose by any name is still a rose. You know, so I can receive those with gladness. Now, whether or not they'll be able to receive what I say with gladness, that's, you know, that's up to them. But I'll try to give it to them in a way that it's glad. Yeah. And I want you all to know that's the most that Suchness has taught this year. Yes.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you to be here too.
I just feel nice job on the paint. I've never seen anything quite that well. I used to finish work. I had well, this real good.
Thank you, Bill.
It's one of the best real jobs I've ever seen that large.
Mm.
I worked for a guy that his wife was a employee of Tiffany's in New York, and she judged our woodwork a lot, and he was married to her, and I never seen quite like that. That's the largest real piece of woodwork I've seen finished like that. That's really mine. It ought to judge out good, way bad, if you want to call it that. It's like A+ for sure.
So, you know, we're having the house painted, the exterior painted, and we have this huge crane because it's got to go up 4 stories in some places, you know, and it is beautiful, the job that they're doing, but you know, like I'm paying for it, so I see all the defects, you know, so every time they come down off the crane, I would say like, did you see that right there? You know, and the guy would say, you know, it's scary up there on that crane. I said, yeah, I know, but you know, once this crane is gone, that will never get fixed again. So when you go back up there after lunch, make sure you take it over there and get that little part over there. He said, okay. So I came back today, you know, they left that section and the part wasn't done, you know, and I was like, okay, so how am I gonna deal with this? Because I really want that little part done. I will figure out how to do it, you know, but I admit that I nitpick sometimes with things, and I should focus more on, you know, how much their work sustains us, you know, and improves our lives here instead of finding something where they're deficient, because we're all deficient in our roles in some regard, in some respect. Yeah. I got the rest of. Anybody else do their assignment? Okay, so we're at 112. No, my eyes just fell on 18. And I was telling you, when I was sick, I started thinking about I will use this time, instead of focusing on how bad I feel, to see it as taking on, you know, the sickness and the suffering of others. And I did that, but now my eyes just dropped to number 18, which wasn't one of the ones I was focusing on, right? It says, when you are down and out, held in contempt, desperately ill, or emotionally crazed, don't lose heart. Take into you the suffering and negativities of all beings. This is the practice of the Bodhisattva. And so that seed got planted in my mind as I went through the assignment, you know, and it came back as a fruit, you know, later in the week when I wasn't even thinking about that one. And that's why it's good for us to take in the Dhamma, because it plants seeds also, you know, and we can nurture and be watering the plant that we see. And without knowing it, we're also watering a plant whose shoot has not started in the ground. And then it will shoot up at a time that we need it. And it will sustain us, and it will free us from that present suffering. And this is how study becomes important. You know, the study is not the thing, but it provides the seed for that which is real to sprout and grow and bear fruit in it. So we're never alone, we're never without resource. We're never separated from wisdom. And that should give us confidence on the path, on our daily walk, right? So it's 1:15. I think we will close now. Nobody else wants to quickly. Thank you for doing your practice. And let's scratch a little deeper for next week. I mean, some of these will actually start to touch you so deeply if every day you just take one over and over and over until you cover 365 days for the year. Just take one. Each time you do, you'll go a little deeper into it. It'll touch you in a little deeper way. It'll bring up a certain kind of contrition, you know, that truly, truly benefits you and enables one to shift their mind, to change the way they think, to dissolve some structure, like a wrecking ball will just tear down something stony that you built, you know, in your heart, maybe truly because of hurt, or truly because of a feeling that one is not enough or not good enough, or they've been told that so long until they actually believe it. Or and you'll see that, oh, I act this way because of this thought that continually rolls through my mind. What if I substituted with this thought? And this thought was continually rolling through my mind, like a mother caring for her ill child. You know, when they treat you as their own worst enemy. It's someone that I've helped a lot over the years. And this past week, you know, she told somebody that somebody else helped her accomplish those things. You know, and my feelings were hurt. And I'm like, wait a minute. You know, I mean, things like that don't hurt my feelings. But my feelings were hurt. And I'm saying, that why would my feelings be hurt about that? If what you did, you just did. You know, and then I saw maybe I needed to examine and see if I have some little bruise that I've just pushed aside. You know how you have a hurt or a sore that you don't pay attention to? You think, oh, I'm bigger than that. Oh, I'm, you know, but saying it is not the real thing. Yeah, it being real is what's real. So whenever we find something that we say to ourselves, like this is the way I think, you know, or and then you find something in your actual experience that contradicts that, then we know that we have to go back and revisit. So that what we say and what we think and what we actually are line up. And then we'll be free. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. I had said we were going to spend the next 4 weeks on this. We're just going to have one more week on this. And then you'll know what to do with yourself. He says on 36 and ending in short, in everything you do, know what is happening in your own mind by being constantly present and aware. You bring about what helps us. All I have to do is be constantly and presently aware of what's in my own mind. And then for the month of November, we're going to be reading and discussing the Digha Nikaya, Sutta number 16. It's the Parinibbana Sutta, wherein the Buddha was leaving the world and his parting instructions. And it's very interesting. It's long. It's really long. But we're going to try to get through it in 4 weeks. Yeah. Thank you for coming.